Good evening, everyone. That lovely reflection in the glass and behind me. It's Gordon Causey coming live again on YouTube, talking about what a surprise. If I'm not talking about faith, I'm talking about monkeypox. And something I'm finding incredibly annoying is to watch the coverage, watching accredited experts being interviewed, and the most obvious questions are not being asked. And maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm unique. Maybe the questions I have nobody else has. I don't think so, but I'll put them out there. I've linked below an article put out by Duke University, which is a highly accredited American medical school. It's more than just medicine, but Duke has a strong reputation in the medical field. And they had a number of experts with who are with Duke University. So, and I'll give the preamble to it. I linked the entire description. Medical experts address fears, realities of monkeypox. And then the subtitle is, as a national health emergency is declared, Duke researchers discuss testing, community response, and who is at risk. While children, and it says Durham, North Carolina, while children can contract the monkeypox virus, it is not likely to spread rapidly once schools reopen this fall, a Duke pediatrician cautioned Friday. Because the virus spreads through prolonged close skin-to-skin contact, youngsters are unlikely to get it in school and daycare settings as long as parents, teachers, and other providers take precautions, said Dr. Ibukun Kalu, Dr. Ibukun Kalu, an assistant professor of pediatrics at Duke. Kalu joined two health colleagues Friday to discuss the monkeypox virus outbreak, which President Biden declared a national health emergency this week. In a virtual briefing with journalists, the three experts fielded questions on testing, public health messaging, how communities should deal with the virus, stigmas associated with monkeypox, and other issues. And it then has a link where you can replay that briefing on YouTube. And then they give you excerpts on, and the first is on monkeypox symptoms. And this is Dr. Cameron Wolfe, an infectious disease specialist. And this Dr. Wolfe is quoted as saying, "This is a virus that is most closely related to smallpox, but presents quite differently." The quote continues, "It starts as a flat red rash that moves into, classically, a blister. As it evolves, that blister actually becomes more of a firm pustule, often quite painful. Eventually, over 2 to 3 weeks, typically those blisters will dry and dead skin peel off and new skin form underneath. Once those blisters have sealed and rehealed, that's when we think people are no longer infectious." I have a couple issues with this answer so far. Number one, it flies in the face of what the World Health Organization is saying. And what the World Health Organization is saying is that, I'm reading directly from their page, monkeypox can cause a range of signs and symptoms. While some people have mild symptoms, others may develop more serious symptoms and need care in a health facility. Those at higher risk for severe illness or complications include people who are pregnant, women, children, and persons that are immunocompromised. They say people who are pregnant. I say women who are pregnant. Continuing from the article, it says, this is the World Health Organization, WHO. The most common symptoms of monkeypox include fever, headache, muscle aches, back pain, low energy, and swollen lymph nodes. A lot of people refer to that as swollen glands. And then it says this is followed or accompanied by the development of a rash, which can last for 2 to 3 weeks. The rash can be found on the face, palms of the hands, soles of the feet, eyes, mouth, throat, groin, and genital and or anal regions of the body. The number of lesions can range from 1 to several thousand. Lesions begin flat, then fill with liquid before they crust over, dry up, and fall off, with a fresh layer of skin forming underneath. Contrast that with what this Dr. Cameron Wolfe is saying, and I quote, "It starts as a flat rash that moves into classically a blister." Well, that's a huge issue because we have the World Health Organization listing a whole bunch of what I would flu-like symptoms that may be followed or accompanied by a rash. And I've read firsthand accounts in reputable mainstream media publications where individuals have said that they experienced symptoms, flu-like symptoms, swollen lymph nodes, et cetera, and that the rash developed later. That individuals have said they've gone to the hospital with flu-like symptoms and have not been tested for monkeypox. They've been tested for COVID. So, which is it? You know, and this I think is vitally important, because when we go on and read further in the article, I'm going to scroll ahead on testing, and again it's Dr. Cameron Wolfe being quoted. The testing is really important here. Not only does it help the individual know that they're positive or not, it also helps us to set up contact tracing. Tracing is something we did at the beginning of COVID. It's really important here. People may not know they've been exposed, and we actually have interventions with vaccines for people who have been exposed. The quote continues, "This is a close contact, skin to skin related condition, so actually remaining at home during that time is really crucial." There appears to be a typo, because if I read it verbatim, it says this is a close contact, skin to skin related condition, so actually remaining at home during that home is really crucial. I think during that time is what they probably mistyped. The quote continues, "Most people manage okay at home, but the key is if you think the symptoms are consistent, please seek out to get a test. Please isolate yourself while you wait for the results." Well, there are all manner of questions that spring out of this. First off is the level of testing. I have read that in the United States, which is a country of, I believe the up-to-date current population number is 335 million, although most often quoted at 330. Either way, it's a lot of people. And I have read that monkeypox testing has been increased and is now at 8,000 tests per week. 8,000 per week. So that averages out at a little over 1,000 per day. I live in Ontario, Canada, and our province of less than 15 million people, so not 14.8 million, I think is the population of Ontario. During COVID, we were doing tens of thousands of tests per day, just in this one province of 14.8 million. We were doing tens of thousands a day, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. I believe we peaked somewhere up around 60-odd thousand per day, maybe even a little higher, per day. In the United States, a nation of 330-odd million people, is testing 8,000 a week. Such an incredibly low level of testing. And it gets to the question of what I'm going to refer to as pre-symptomatic. Before the onset of the disease, before symptoms actually present, is a person infectious? That is my question. During the COVID era, not only did we assume pre-symptomatic transmission, we assumed asymptomatic transmission, meaning that a healthy person who never displayed any symptoms whatsoever, we still did mass randomized testing, again, tens of thousands per day, just in my little province of Ontario, little when you compare it to the size of the United States. And anyone who tested positive was forced to quarantine, to isolate. If someone got off a plane in Canada, and if they were suspected based on a PCR test to be COVID positive, they would be forced into a quarantine hotel where at least 2 women claimed to have been sexually assaulted, locks removed from the doors. And that's what we did with COVID. With monkeypox, does monkeypox not transmit asymptomatically or pre-symptomatically? Let's get to the elephant in the room. I was just talking to a family member today, and I jokingly said to this family member, I said, monkeypox rash healing up. And he said, oh, I don't have to worry. I'm straight. I'm not at risk. And so let's deal with it. Almost all the transmission that has occurred has been, it's almost been almost exclusively, not exclusively, but almost in the male, gay, and bisexual community, the so-called men who have sex with men. And the question I have is this. We have a setting like a bathhouse where apparently men are known to go to have random sexual encounters with strangers, and sometimes multiple encounters, or multiple, more than one person involved. I'll use the term an orgy. Well, are all the lights off? Would you not see that the person you are getting intimate with is infected? And what individual, regardless of their state of arousal, is going to get into close, intimate contact with someone who's openly displaying a rash or symptoms of a disease? I don't think it would happen. I think it would be incredibly rare. I think this speaks to the fact that we're non-expert opinion here. I'm not an expert in infectious disease or virology or anything, or epidemiology or anything like that. But the fact that we're seeing such widespread, we're up over 30,000 cases globally now when we're doing tests through an eyedropper. It says to me that individuals are transmitting either asymptomatically or pre-symptomatically, and which makes it hard to, I understand the concept of contact tracing, but I also have difficulty intellectually wrapping my head around it. I remember Rudy Gobert, who plays center for the Utah Jazz, and he famously did a press conference where someone asked him, one of the reporters asked him, I think, about his level of fear with regard to COVID or whatever. And he turned around, he touched all the microphones as saying, I'm not worried. And then later, famously, he tested positive. And I think that was the event which led to the NBA shutting down its season. And they were talking about the number of people with whom Rudy Gobert could have been in contact with over the preceding, I think, just 2 or 3 days. He's in the trainer's room, he's going to the hotel, he's on the team bus. So, aside from just his, aside from just the people that are on the team and the training staff and the opponents he played during those games, then you have people at the hotels and everything. And how do you contact trace this? Because once you identify the 100 or so people that he would have been in, share in the locker rooms with, in the hotel lobby with, in the elevators with, in his hotel room with, you identify those, even if it's 50, 60 people, then you have to contact trace all those people, and it just spider webs out. I told 2 friends, and each of those 2 friends tell 2 friends and 2 friends, and it just goes, that doubling factor. You're up into the billions within a month. So how do you contact trace your way out of a virus? It sounds to me like the same rationale that multi-level marketing schemes try to use to hook people in to a multi-level marketing scheme. Well, you tell 2 friends, and then they tell 2 friends, and you build your network. Well, if everyone does that, we'll exhaust, you even start out with 2 people, each telling 2, and then doubling from there. You exhaust the entire population of Canada in a few weeks. In a month or so, you'd exhaust the entire population of the world. So those are just the 2 biggest questions I have are on asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic transmission. Can a person be contagious asymptomatically or pre-symptomatically? And secondly, with this incredibly low level of testing, what's the real number? They did this wastewater analysis to give a snapshot as to an educated guess as to the number of COVID infections that were in Ontario or any specific jurisdiction. Well, at the end of the day, based on my non-expert view, how do you stop it? How do you stop it? And yes, I know that people are saying that right now it's men who have sex with men. Well, this is now summer in the Northern Hemisphere. And in Canada, in my part of Ontario, this week we had the forecasted temperatures for this week were humidex readings up and around the 40-degree mark Celsius. We're up around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And everything they told us about the COVID era was that in summer, rates of transmission decline. Is that true with monkeypox as well? Is the only reason it's spreading right now overwhelmingly among men who are in close intimate contact with other men. But as we move into the fall and the weather gets colder, there are other articles out there saying that, testing of airborne aerosols as among those infected with monkeypox has found that, yes, the virus does exist in aerosols. Okay. Now, just because it exists in an aerosol, does that mean it transmits via aerosols? And will it matter what the weather, temperature, humidity conditions are like? Does the virus not do well in hot, humid conditions? Does it do better when things get colder and damper, like we see in the fall and winter? I guess we will find out. Like I say, my degrees in virology and epidemiology and infectious disease are from a Cracker Jack box. I'm just asking the questions. And I would like to hear some answers, but our horrible media All they seem to be interested in doing is just acting as a well, this is what this expert said. They never ask any questions. They never engage in investigative journalism. Just within that article itself, there are so many coulds and shoulds and we thinks. Those words should raise a red flag with anyone. Well, we believe. Well, beliefs are nice, but do you have any empirical data to back up that belief? Well, no, just my experience. Okay, it's an expert opinion, but you don't have any empirical data to back it up, because we've seen with the COVID era, we were initially told January, February that you should be more worried about the flu, is what everyone kept saying. All the experts on media were there, and the media was parroting it. You don't be concerned, but not overly. You should be more worried about the flu. That was the messaging on COVID from January and February. Then they shut the world down. And for the first time ever, we tested widely. Canada, over a 2-year period, did more tests for COVID than we have population. We did in excess of 38 million tests over 2 years. What other virus have we ever done? So we can benchmark. How does it compare with viral outbreaks? How does it compare to the Hong Kong flu pandemic of 1968 to 1970? Well, we can't compare because we didn't do the same degree of testing. How does it compare with H1N1 from I think it was 2005-6? How does it compare to swine? Well, we don't know. We can't compare it because we measured it differently back then. We changed the measurement system. We changed the way we measured things. And I sometimes wonder, I'm 56 years of age, so I don't remember the Hong Kong flu pandemic. I was in diapers at that time, 1968. I was 2 years old, just getting out of diapers, hopefully. 1968 to 1970. They say, according to what I've read, that there were as many as 4 million deaths worldwide due to the Hong Kong flu pandemic. And that was at a time when the world's population was less than half of what it is now. So proportionally, it was every bit as bad and maybe worse than COVID. And that was as many as 4 million deaths in 1968 and 1970. And that was during a time when we didn't test everything that moved. And then if someone died and they had a positive test, it was automatically put into the Hong Kong flu column because we didn't do that. So what's coming in the fall is, I'm afraid that they're going to say, well, we'll hear the same lines that we heard during the COVID era. Well, the science evolved. No, the facts didn't evolve. Truth doesn't evolve. Science is a process of investigation. It's not a thing. So it's a method. It's a process and of escalating levels of proof. And we've fallen into a situation where people they know 10% or even less about something. And based on that 10% knowledge, they make a proclamation as fact. But 90% of it remains unknown. So you can't be making a proclamation of fact like seems to be done in this article, that it starts as a flat red rash that moves into classically a blister. Well, not according to the World Health Organization, and not according to countless mainstream articles with individuals who've actually come down with it. They say, I don't know, I don't believe it's universal, but some individuals are coming forward. And there was one article I just shared on my social media feed. I'll check on it. With an individual who said no amount of morphine was sufficient to quell the pain. Let's see if I can find this specific article. I share too much on my social media feed, so it takes me a while to find it. Here, there's the article. It was in the standard.com. Monkeypox victims speak out on agonizing waits for treatment. And the article starts out with a quote saying, "No amount of morphine was enough to numb the pain." And I've read that in other stories as well, that it's impossible. One individual was saying it was impossible to get a good night's sleep, even with heavy duty prescription pain medication. So right now, it's transmitting primarily in the gay and bisexual community, men. Gay and bisexual men are the primary victims. Not only, I think there are 4 children in the United States who have had it now, and I think it's 99% men. The other, there are a couple women, but that's now during a long, hot summer. We've also been told that monkeypox has undergone in the last 3-4 years 50 mutations. And according to experts in infectious disease, the normal number of mutations that would be seen in a given year would be 1 or 2. So we've had this massive change in the virus from 2018-19 to present. The speculation that they're putting forward is that their experts are saying that this serves as an indication that monkeypox has been transmitting over the past 3-4 years widely, but going undetected. How is that possible? A bunch of people just were being quiet about being infected. It never got discovered until all of a sudden now, until May of 2022. All those other guys who were, that doesn't add up. You're not allowed during the COVID era. At the beginning in March, April 2020, anyone who suggested that monkeypox came out of the Wuhan coronavirus lab was deemed a spreader of misinformation and slandered, including a Nobel Prize winning virologist, including countless experts. Anyone suggesting that the accepted story was that it jumped from a monkey, no, I'm stuck on monkeypox, sorry, that it jumped from a bat to a human being in a wet market in Wuhan, China. But not at the, it certainly didn't come from that coronavirus lab right next door to the wet market. Right next door, figuratively, euphemistically speaking. You weren't, so is there a possibility that this monkeypox virus may also have been bioengineered? And could that explain why there are 50 mutations that have suddenly occurred within why there have been 50 mutations in just a 3-4 year period? Open question. I don't have the answer. Even with COVID, it's not empirically proven that it came from that lab or any other lab. It has not been, no one's going to admit it. But now at least you're allowed to openly speculate, and many experts have, and they have said that they are of the opinion that it's overwhelmingly likely that the virus came out of that lab or a lab. But again, I don't think we'll ever get empirical proof, because if it did come out of that lab in China, in Wuhan, are the Chinese authorities going to admit to the globe and say, okay, you got us, our bad, sorry? No. So we're never going to get 100% empirical proof. And likewise with monkeypox, I think it's an open question. Is this a bioengineered virus? Did they take the monkeypox virus and gain a function it up to make it more transmissible? and what's going to happen as it continues to mutate. Is one of the things that came out that you couldn't say before, but you can now. Several experts, among them was Dr. Luc Montagnier, who's a Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Geert Vanden Bossche, who worked for Gavi, the Global Alliance on Vaccine Initiative, or I forget what Gavi stands for exactly. It's a pro-vaccine advocacy group. He worked for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in their vaccine development program. He worked in vaccine development, senior roles with GSK and Novartis, highly accredited expert. And he expressed the opinion early when the vaccines for COVID first started rolling out that immune escape. That what he said was that the vaccine generated antibodies would outcompete your own natural immune system's antibodies, the antibodies that the human immune system develops on its own naturally, that the vaccine generated antibodies would outcompete them, and that the virus would learn to defeat the vaccine generated antibodies, and that it would evolve to overcome that vaccine generated immunity, and that it would mutate into something even more pathogenic. It's something even more infectious, and that we'd see even higher levels. And what did we see? Omicron. He didn't name Omicron, he just described it. So this is what's going to happen. And he was censored and banned and deplatformed, the whole shebang. Meanwhile, there's a woman on MSNBC whose name escapes me, but she was able to go and probably talk to millions of people and say, the virus stops with each vaccinated person. With each vaccinated person, the virus stops. It cannot use that person to jump to another person. Well, that didn't work out. Because now I think we all know fully vaccinated, double or boosted and double boosted people who are infected. I think Gail Whitmer, who's the governor, I believe she's the governor of Michigan, has just announced that she's double vaccinated, boosted, and boosted again, 4 shots, and now she's got COVID. So, and she, the shots don't stop infection, and they don't stop transmission. And now we have, I'll end it with the vaccine for monkeypox. What I've read on it, there's the old smallpox vaccine that I had. I still have that scar on my arm. I'm over 50. Anyone over 50, you probably have that, and took that gun and went ka-toom, and it left a permanent scar that even now, 40, almost, well, more than 40. I would have been about 12 when I got that. So do the math. I'm 56 now. So 44 years later, I still got the mark. And it's not that there is a version of that vaccine available, but they have a new one, and I forget the name of it, Janus or Janus. It starts with a J. And this newer vaccine was developed for smallpox as well. But this is the one they're telling us, I believe it has, they're saying it has 85% efficacy against monkeypox. Did some reading on it. From what I understand, it went through multiple phase 3 trials, and versus the COVID vaccines, which haven't even had, none of them have completed their trials. Moderna, I believe their trial is estimated study completion date, according to the regulators, has been pushed back from October to December of this year. So that's when their combined phase 1, 2, and 3 run all at the same time. They didn't do multiple trials. They did one trial and called it phase 1, 2, 3, concurrent. Pfizer's, I don't think theirs is slated to be over until January or February of 2024. So as compared to those, the COVID shots, which were, insanely warp speed. Warp speed is when you bend space and time. Science fiction. So they developed it at warp speed. I guess they got on the Enterprise and bent space and time and moved forward. This Janos or whatever it's called, it was developed specifically for smallpox, and then they tested it in primates for monkeypox, and it was in the primate population. That's what they're basing this 80%, 85% efficacy against monkeypox on, from what I understand. Non-expert, read it yourself. It's based on studies in primates. I don't know whether it was rhesus, monkeys, chimpanzees, macaques. I don't know what primate, but so I'll leave it there. Got to end it off on faith, because I'll invite you to read Joshua, and I'm not sure what chapter it is. I think it's chapter 9, 10, somewhere around there. Typically, Bibles will have a heading on it. They'll say, Moses at the burning bush, or Abraham with his son Isaac, or whatever. Look for the part where it says Joshua and Israel encountered the Gibeonites. And what had happened in this account: Israel, the Jewish people, wandering 40 years in the desert, had crossed over into the promised land, and across the Jordan into the promised land. And God had given the inhabitants of Canaan into their hands. The Canaanite people, it's written, were worshiping idols, committing all manner of evil and unrighteousness, and sacrificing children. And so God had delivered the people of Canaan into the hands of Israel. And Israel, Joshua and his armies, had already defeated 2 kingdoms. And a number of kingdoms had aligned themselves together to fight against Joshua and his armies, while the Gibeonites chose to use guile. And what they did is they were right next door. They were among the people who the Bible says God had ordained that they would be conquered, because God did not want these faithless, evil, corrupt, unrighteous people to pollute his chosen, covenanted people, the people of Israel, the Israelites. And so what they did is they decided to go. They sent an official delegation to go and meet with Joshua and the Hebrews. And in preparing to go to meet them, what they did is they took out dry and moldy bread, old wineskins that were bursting. They put on old clothing, worn out sandals, and they went and they met with Joshua and the elders of Israel. And they said, "We are from a very far distant land, and word has reached us about you, and we want to make peace with you and a covenant with you, so that, we've heard you're powerful and that your God is with you, and he's already delivered 2 kingdoms to you, and we want to be your friends." And Joshua and the elders say, "Well, how do we know you are not among the people we have been told to displace?" And they say, "Oh, we brought proof. We have evidence." And they this food, this bread was still warm when we left on our journey. These sandals I'm wearing were new. Our wine, these wineskins were brand new. Look at them, they're bursting now. Our sandals are worn out. Our bread is crusted. That's how far away it's been. We've traveled, weeks to get here. And the money verse, for lack of a better word, comes where it says that Joshua and the elders of Israel did not seek counsel of God. They didn't pray. They didn't go into, they had what would have been called the tent of meeting. Could have gone in, consulted. They did not do that. They accepted the testimony. They accepted the evidence of these Gibeonites, and they made a covenant with them that they would not harm them. And then the Gibeonites left, and a day or two later, they found out that they were among the people that God had commanded that they overtake them. And that led to all kinds of problems for the nation of Israel. It subjected their people to the influence of idolatry and all manner of other ungodly behavior, ungodly practice. And the people were angry. And the elders and Joshua said, we swore by the Lord our God. We swore by the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, not to harm these people. We can't touch them. They did not seek. There are a lot of lies out there in the world right now, and official lies, and believable evidence. But you have to be incredibly discerning in today's world. And I realize that faith is a difficult nut to crack for a lot of people. And my earnestness, I hope it comes across, because ultimately God is truth. And we live in a world full of lies and deception. And if you get into it, through Jesus Christ, we can be brought into relationship with God. The Bible has numerous cases of Jesus healing the blind. But blind doesn't necessarily mean being unable to see things in the physical world. There are all kinds of things we can be blind to. We can be blind to those. We can put blind trust in the wrong places. We can put blind trust and faith in people who are openly deceiving us. And in today's world, with everything that is available, forget the Gibeonites. The Gibeonites, they probably came on some camels and donkeys, an official delegation. In today's world, we have the nightly news done with high production values. I think that there's part of me that wants to dress this up, to put a nice backdrop, to invest in a high-speed, robust, big pipe internet connection so that my video quality would be better, and that and have high production values. Yeah, there's an element within me that would like that. But at the same time, there's another part of me that says, you know what? It's better this way. Because lies are quite often very attractive. They're what you want to hear. We can stop this. We can stop monkeypox. Oh, good. That's what I wanted to hear. We can stop it. Science, yay. We'll stop it the way we stopped COVID. sometimes the truth whispers. It's not flashy, it's simple. And the world is talk to people who work in the supply chain, and particular the food supply chain. Talk to them about absenteeism. Talk to them about issues. Talk to them about challenges. Because if we hit a situation during the COVID era, a lot of healthy people were forced to stay home. They'd get a nasal colonoscopy, they'd get a positive, and they would be home for, I think it was 14 days, and unable to go into work. They were healthy, they weren't sick, but they couldn't go into work. My fear is that going forward with monkeypox, that we're going to have people who forget the test. They're just going to be incapable of coming in to work, whether it be in the food supply chain, whether it be ambulance, firefighter, police, whether it be maintaining the electrical grid or sanitation or water treatment, whatever. If a large number of people are actually sick, not just positive test, but sick, and can't get into work, what's going to happen? And I don't think we're all equally susceptible to monkeypox. I don't think they're one size fits all. I don't think COVID was one size fits all. When COVID got into nursing home, incredibly weak, frail, unhealthy population, and often at the end of natural life expectancy, it was a tsunami. But we don't have anything to compare it to. They never announced how many deaths were occurring in long-term care facilities, nursing homes, and hospices. They never told us how many deaths happen each and every day. If they had, and the numbers are undoubtedly available, they could say, how much worse was it? Was it the same? Was it a little better, a little worse? How many deaths would happen each and every day in Ontario long-term care facilities in 2017, 18, 19? We don't know. They won't tell us. What evidence are they bringing forward? The Gibeonites put on old worn-out sandals, so it looked like they'd traveled for hundreds of miles over weeks. Anyway, that's enough. God bless everyone. And last point, if there is a genuine expert out there on infectious disease, and someone who's willing to go public, someone whose credentials can be verified, who has actual accreditation in something along the lines of virology or infectious disease. I don't want epidemiology isn't good enough, because epidemiology is not, in point of fact, an actual medical discipline. It's not a medical degree. I consider epidemiology is about theories and ideas about how to possibly limit the spread of a virus or a pathogenic, contagious disease. It's mechanical, it's not medical, and it's about theories. So if someone has a degree accreditation in virology or infectious disease or similar, and would be willing to go public, I'm co-host of a podcast with a buddy of mine out of the United States. We do it over Zoom. It would be in all likelihood published to Rumble, although if we can stay within the bounds of YouTube's community standards, which I can't believe that, well, it's neither here nor there, but if we can keep it within the bounds, maybe even have it on YouTube. So reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, Gordy Canuck, but Canuck is spelled C-A-N-U-K, Gordie, Canuck, C-A-N-U-K. Reach out to me, and we'll make it happen. But again, I would want it to be someone who has publicly verifiable bona fides, and who'd be willing to put their name out there. So, and I would ask the questions that I'm asking now. I would ask these questions about asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic transmission, about the levels of testing, about the fall, winter time, and the potential for things to evolve. So we'll end it there, and like, subscribe, all the stuff people say at the end. God bless.